So we continue in Genesis with Abram. Now, you need to understand something. Yes, God showed Abram he's going to have children from his loins, and his offspring is going to take over the land. He made a covenant with him over that. But how many times do we actually acknowledge God has a special purpose in our lives? And I think some of us do. But then, what is it we try to do? We try to shortcut the situation, don't we? I know I have in my life. I knew God wanted something in me, and I shortcut the entire thing. God allowed me to, but I should have trusted God. And all of us should. Sometimes we really don't have enough faith to trust God, do we? Well, the story today with Abram shows that Abram was guilty as well. We continue and we start in Genesis 16, verses 1 to 4. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bore him no children. That's no surprise. We already knew that, right? And she had a handmaid, an Egyptian whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, Behold, the Lord has restrained me from bearing. I pray, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. Notice, how long has it passed? Wow, 10 years. After Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. Sarai did this. Gave Hagar to her husband to wife. Wow. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Folks, here we have the first surrogate mother. You've heard of that, surrogate mother, right? They bear the children and then give up their children. Ha! We'll see what happens in the future. But here we have the first recorded surrogate mother, Hagar. And Sarai's plan was to take that child and claim it as her own. So back in Genesis 11, verse 30, it said, but Sarai was barren. She had no child. For those many decades since Abram had first embarked for Canaan until now, it was already known that Sarai was barren, unable to bear children. For approximately 3 to 4 centuries after the flood, women generally did not suffer from any menopause. They bore children until just before they died. Hard to believe, isn't it? But Sarai, according to the Bible, was completely infertile. This is why Abram's faith in God had been so remarkable up to this point. Abram had faith that he would still have children. You know, they didn't have fertility clinics back then like we do now. So Sarai had a brilliant idea. We already read that, so I'm just emphasizing that. Behold now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing, she said. I pray, go into my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. See, Abram thought it was him that had the problem. And Sarai thought she had the problem. Maybe you'll have a child by her. Right? Folks, here we have the first, like I said, surrogate mother. So, instead of continuing to believe in the Lord, as we read in Genesis 15, verse 6, Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. This sounds very much like Adam in the Garden of Eden, doesn't it? In Genesis 3, verse 17, God punished him because thou hast listened to the voice of thy wife and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, don't eat of it. Their sin was not that they listened to their wives, but that they listened to their wives in defiance to God. Let me make that clear. It's important we listen to our wives. Sometimes our wives are our voice of reason, are a voice of caution, but not if they suggest we defy the will of God. And vice versa too. Sometimes guys do that to the women too. I'm being equal opportunity here, right? And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her handmaid, and gave her to Abram, her husband, to him for a wife. And he did. He went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. Examine carefully how verse 3 and 4 are worded. Sarai is Abram's wife, and Abram is her husband. Nowhere is polygamy condoned here, and polygamy isn't even suggested. But it says that Sarai gave Hagar to him for a wife. The idea is that not only would Hagar be a surrogate mother, but she'd also be a surrogate wife for the purpose of creation. Whoa! She would never fully be Abram's wife. Did you get that? Did you get that? She gave Hagar to her husband. So he was still Sarai's husband. What a complicated, messed up situation Abram got himself in. Hagar had her own ideas, all right. Back in Egypt, polygamy was openly practiced. So when she was found to be pregnant, she appeared to be looking down at Sarai. She was going to give birth to Abram's heir, and not Sarai. She was arrogant. I believe she anticipated being elevated from being a slave to being a full-fledged wife. To say Sarai felt hurt would definitely be an understatement, and we'll examine that in the future sessions.